Why the person you love hasn't texted you yet? The answer may surprise you. Open now to find out. My beloved child. The silence you've been staring at is not as empty as it seems. You keep checking your phone, wondering why the person you love hasn't sent that one message that could change everything. But what if I told you that the real reason has almost nothing to do with losing interest? There is a hidden moment happening behind the scenes, one you were never meant to witness. Right now, while doubt keeps whispering that you've been forgotten, another story is unfolding in complete silence. A story filled with hesitation, fear, and a decision that has been delayed over and over again. Don't skip, because the next few moments may completely change the way you see that unread conversation. The truth isn't hidden inside your inbox. It's hidden inside a choice someone has been struggling to make for much longer than you realize. And once you understand what that choice is, you'll never look at their silence the same way again. Think about the last conversation you had with them. Was there something left unsaid? A sentence that ended too quickly? A feeling that neither of you admitted out loud? Most people believe silence means distance, but sometimes silence is created by the exact opposite. Sometimes emotions become so overwhelming that every message feels too small, every word feels dangerous, and every attempt to reach out carries the terrifying possibility of changing everything forever. Imagine holding your phone, typing the perfect message, reading it 10 times, and still deleting it because one wrong sentence could ruin the future you've secretly dreamed about. Stay till the end, because this is where the hidden pattern begins to reveal itself. There is one emotional barrier that keeps appearing whenever someone truly fears losing the person they love, and once you recognize it, the unanswered texts begin to make far more sense than you ever expected. But there is something even stranger happening. While you've been wondering why they haven't contacted you, they may have been asking themselves an entirely different question: what if it's already too late? That single thought has been quietly growing inside them, turning every passing day into another excuse to wait just a little longer. The longer they hesitate, the heavier the silence becomes, until even sending a simple "hello" starts to feel impossible. Yet silence cannot hide forever. Every delayed decision eventually reaches a breaking point where the heart demands an answer that fear can no longer control. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is one invisible event approaching faster than either of you expects, and when it arrives, it won't just explain why the message never came. It may reveal why the next message changes everything. The quiet between you has been carrying more weight than either of you can see. Every day that passes adds another layer of uncertainty, making it seem as though the distance is growing. But beneath that silence, something unexpected has been happening. The person you love has replayed your last memories together more times than you could imagine. Certain words keep echoing in their mind, and they wonder whether they misunderstood something you said, or whether you misunderstood them. That uncertainty has become a prison of its own making. Instead of reaching for their phone, they convince themselves to wait one more day, hoping the perfect moment will somehow appear. But perfect moments rarely arrive on their own. They are created by decisions, and one decision has been haunting them more than any other. There is another truth that almost no one talks about. Sometimes people don't stay silent because they have nothing to say. They stay silent because they have far too much to say. They imagine every possible outcome before pressing send. What if you don't answer? What if you answer differently than they hoped? What if the conversation brings back emotions they have spent weeks trying to organize? Their heart keeps moving forward while their mind keeps pulling them back. It's an exhausting battle that repeats itself over and over again. Stay with this story, because the next piece explains why this emotional struggle has reached a point where it can no longer continue without consequences. The silence is becoming heavier for them than it is for you. And now something has shifted. A small, unexpected event, one that seems completely ordinary, has stirred emotions they believed they had under control. Maybe it was a familiar place, a forgotten photograph, a song they weren't expecting to hear, or a simple reminder that carried your presence into an ordinary day. Suddenly, avoiding their feelings no longer feels possible. The walls they built to delay that message are beginning to crack. But before they finally reach out, one last obstacle remains in front of them. A hidden fear so powerful that it has stopped every previous attempt. Once that final barrier is broken, the silence you've been questioning may end in a way neither of you ever expected. The final barrier isn't pride. It isn't anger. It isn't even uncertainty. It's the fear that your life has already moved forward without them. Every day they remain silent, that fear grows stronger. They imagine you smiling beside someone else, finding peace without them, or deciding that waiting was no longer worth it. So instead of risking disappointment, they convince themselves that staying quiet is somehow safer. But every quiet day has only made their heart louder. Deep inside, they know that silence has protected nothing. It has only created a distance they never wanted. And now they're beginning to realize that if they wait any longer, they may lose the chance they were trying so desperately to preserve. Yet something unexpected has begun to change inside them. They've stopped asking, "What if they reject me?" and started asking a far more dangerous question. What if I never know what could have happened? That single thought has shifted everything. Regret has become heavier than fear. The memories they once tried to ignore now refuse to leave them alone. They catch themselves reading old conversations, remembering tiny details they once overlooked, and wondering whether the connection between you was ever truly broken. Don't look away now, because this is the exact moment when hesitation begins turning into determination. The silence is no longer giving them comfort. It's becoming impossible to carry. But just as they prepare to take the step they've been avoiding, another truth comes into focus, one they never expected to discover. They realize that someone close to them has quietly influenced their decisions all along. A voice they trusted planted seeds of doubt, encouraged them to wait, and convinced them that reaching out would only make things worse. For a long time, they believed those warnings. Now they're questioning every one of them. If those fears were never truly their own, then what has been holding them back all this time? As that realization grows stronger, they're about to uncover something that could completely change the reason behind every unanswered message. And once they see it, there may be no turning back. The moment they began questioning those old fears, everything around them started to look different. They remembered conversations they had dismissed, advice they had accepted without thinking, and warnings that suddenly didn't feel true anymore. One by one, the pieces began falling into place. The silence was never created by a lack of feeling. It was strengthened by voices that kept telling them to wait, to be careful, to protect themselves at all costs. But protecting themselves had slowly become another way of losing you. The realization hit harder than they expected. Every day they delayed wasn't keeping their heart safe. It was slowly pushing the one person they truly cared about further away. And that painful truth has become impossible for them to ignore. For the first time in a long while, they stopped imagining the worst and started remembering the best. They recalled the moments when you made them feel understood without saying much at all. They remembered how easily conversations flowed before fear found its way between you. Those memories have become impossible to silence. Instead of fading, they've grown stronger with every passing day. Stay till the end, because something unexpected has happened during this quiet reflection. They finally admitted something they had been hiding even from themselves. It wasn't that they didn't want to send the message. They were waiting for certainty, a guarantee that opening their heart wouldn't leave it shattered. But certainty never came. Only the growing realization that waiting forever would hurt far more than taking one honest chance. Then came the moment they never saw coming. Without planning it, they opened your conversation again. Their thumb hovered over the keyboard, not because they didn't know what to say, but because they suddenly understood that the very first word carried enormous weight. One message could reopen a connection, or confirm every fear they had been carrying. They typed a sentence. They erased it. They tried again. This time, they didn't stop because of doubt. They stopped because something else caught their attention. Something they noticed about you that completely changed what they planned to write. What they discovered in that single moment may become the reason their next message is nothing like the one they originally intended. They noticed something that had been there all along, hidden in plain sight. It wasn't a dramatic sign or an unbelievable coincidence. It was the quiet realization that your silence had begun to mirror their own. They wondered if you had stopped reaching out for the very same reason they had, because every unanswered moment made the next one feel even harder. Suddenly, they saw the situation from your side. They imagined you staring at your phone, asking the same painful questions, wondering if you had somehow become unimportant. That thought shook them. For the first time, they understood that while they had been protecting themselves from disappointment, you may have been carrying the exact same weight alone. Don't skip, because this realization has awakened something they can no longer ignore. The walls they spent so long building are beginning to crumble. They are no longer trying to find the perfect words. They are searching for the honest ones. That is a much more difficult journey. Honest words cannot hide behind excuses. Honest words admit mistakes. Honest words acknowledge the nights spent wondering what could have been different. They have finally accepted that no carefully planned message will erase the time that has passed. But perhaps it doesn't have to. Perhaps what truly matters is the courage to be genuine after all this silence. As that understanding grows stronger, another unexpected emotion rises within them: hope. A quiet, cautious hope that maybe your story hasn't ended after all, but has simply been waiting for someone brave enough to turn the next page. Then, just as they prepare to send the message they've rewritten countless times, life places one final test in front of them. An unexpected conversation, a surprising piece of news, or a single moment of reflection forces them to pause one last time. It isn't because they've changed their heart. It's because they suddenly realize that the next few minutes could shape everything that follows. They close their eyes, take a slow breath, and make a decision they never thought they would have the strength to make. But before their finger touches the send button, one last hidden truth comes to light, a truth about your connection that neither of you has fully understood. And once that truth is revealed, the message they're about to send will carry far more than words. It will carry a choice that could change both of your lives. That hidden truth is far simpler, and far more powerful, than either of you imagined. Your connection was never weakened by one mistake or one unanswered message. It was slowly buried beneath assumptions. They assumed you had stopped caring. You assumed they had chosen to walk away. Neither assumption was ever confirmed, yet both were treated as facts. That's how silence grows. It fills the empty spaces with stories that fear invents. The longer those stories remain unchallenged, the more convincing they become. But now those imagined conclusions are beginning to collapse. They can no longer pretend that silence has given them peace. It has only left them wondering what might still be possible if one person finds the courage to speak first. Then something remarkable happens inside them. They stop chasing the perfect outcome and start valuing the truth itself. They realize that even if the conversation doesn't unfold exactly as they hope, living with honesty is easier than living with endless questions. The fear that once controlled every decision begins to lose its grip. Instead of asking, "What if this goes wrong?" they quietly ask, "What if this is the moment we've both been waiting for?" Stay till the end, because this shift changes everything. The message in front of them is no longer written to impress you or to erase the past. It's written to be real. Every sentence reflects the feelings they spent so long hiding, and for the first time, they feel ready to let those words exist without taking them back. But just before they press send, they notice one final detail that makes them freeze. It's not something dramatic. It's something deeply personal. They remember a promise, spoken long ago or perhaps understood without words, that neither of you ever truly forgot. That memory reminds them that this isn't just another text. It's the beginning of an answer to every silent day that came before it. Their finger hovers over the screen for one last heartbeat. In the next moment, they will either send the message, or let fear win again. And what finally happens may reveal that the greatest obstacle was never the distance between you, it was the truth they were only now brave enough to face. The next heartbeat feels longer than all the weeks of silence combined. They stare at the screen, realizing there is no perfect time left to wait for. Every excuse that once sounded convincing has finally run out. They understand that if they close the conversation now, nothing will change tomorrow, or the day after that. The silence will simply continue writing a story that neither of you ever intended. That realization gives them a quiet kind of courage. Not the loud confidence people talk about, but the kind that appears when someone grows tired of running from their own heart. Something huge is waiting for you, because the decision they make in this moment isn't only about sending a text. It's about choosing hope over fear for the very first time. As they read their message one final time, they remove almost every carefully chosen sentence. The explanations disappear. The rehearsed speeches vanish. Even the perfect opening they had imagined no longer feels necessary. They finally understand that the words carrying the greatest power are often the simplest ones. A genuine message doesn't need to impress anyone. It only needs to be true. For the first time, they stop wondering how you will respond and start focusing on something far more important, that you deserve to know what has been in their heart all this time. The weight they've been carrying begins to lift, because honesty asks for courage, not certainty. And that courage has finally arrived. Then the moment you've been waiting for quietly unfolds. Their finger moves across the screen, and the message leaves their phone. There is no dramatic celebration. Only silence, followed by an unexpected sense of peace. But the story doesn't end there. The instant that message begins its journey toward you, another realization reaches them with astonishing clarity. They now understand that the text itself was never the greatest surprise. The greatest surprise is what your response has the power to awaken inside both of you. Somewhere between fear and hope, between the past and whatever comes next, a new chapter is already beginning. And what happens when you finally read those words may reveal that this long silence was preparing both hearts for a conversation neither of you will ever forget. The waiting is over, but the real mystery has only just begun. When your screen finally lights up, the message isn't what you expected. There are no dramatic promises. No desperate explanations. Instead, there is an honesty so quiet that it carries more emotion than pages of carefully rehearsed words ever could. Every sentence reveals the same hidden truth: they were never fighting against you. They were fighting against the fear inside themselves. In that instant, weeks of silence begin to make sense. Not because the pain disappears, but because the reason behind it is finally uncovered. Stay with this until the very end, because one final revelation is still waiting to be discovered. As you read each line, something changes inside both of you. The unanswered questions that once felt impossible to solve begin falling away one by one. You realize that love is rarely destroyed by a lack of feeling. More often, it is buried beneath hesitation, misunderstandings, and the belief that there will always be another chance tomorrow. They confess that every delayed message became heavier than the last, until reaching out felt almost impossible. Yet the moment they chose honesty over fear, everything shifted. The silence that once separated you became the very reason this conversation now carries so much meaning. Sometimes the longest wait prepares two hearts to hear words they would have ignored months earlier. And now you know the answer that brought you here. The person you love didn't stay silent because you weren't worth texting. They stayed silent because they allowed fear to speak louder than their heart. Until they finally realized that losing the chance to be honest would hurt far more than risking the truth. That is the surprise hidden behind every unanswered notification. Not every silence is rejection. Sometimes it is the final test before someone gathers the courage to stop hiding. As this chapter closes, one thought remains with you: the message was never the ending you had been waiting for. It was the beginning of a conversation capable of changing everything that comes next. What happens after that first exchange is something neither of you could have predicted. The conversation doesn't erase the past in a single moment. It doesn't magically undo every sleepless night or every unanswered question. Instead, it does something far more meaningful: it replaces assumptions with truth. For the first time in a long while, you're no longer trying to guess what the other person is thinking. The walls built by silence begin to fall, one honest sentence at a time. You discover that the greatest distance between two people is rarely measured in miles. It's measured in everything they were too afraid to say. And once those words finally find their way into the open, the future begins to look very different from the one fear had written. Looking back, you realize this journey was never really about a delayed text. It was about learning how easily fear can disguise itself as protection. Every moment of hesitation felt reasonable while it was happening, yet every delay quietly stole another opportunity to be understood. The person you love finally sees that waiting for the perfect moment almost cost them the chance they wanted most. And perhaps you've discovered something just as important, that unanswered messages don't always